We are all together again, friends, for this next episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Margaret is 26. She was diagnosed 15 years ago, and she has a very interesting job. She's a corrections officer, and her A1C has been dropping from an 11 due to help she received through the podcast. We're going to hear all about her life, her job, her diabetes on this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan. Don't forget, if you're a U.S. resident who has type 1 or is the caregiver of someone with type 1, visit t1dexchange.org/juicebox right now and complete that survey. It will take you 10 minutes to complete the survey, and that effort alone will help to move type 1 diabetes research forward. It will cost you nothing to help. When you place your first order for AG1 with my link, you'll get 5 free travel packs and a free year's supply of vitamin D. Drink ag1.com/juicebox. Don't forget to save 40% off of your entire order at CozyEarth.com. All you have to do is use the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout. That's JUICEBOX at checkout to save 40% at CozyEarth.com. Did you know if just one person in your family has type 1 diabetes, you're up to 15 times more likely to get it too? So screen it like you mean it. One blood test can spot type 1 diabetes early. Tap now, talk to a doctor, or visit screenedfortype1.com for more info. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the Contour NextGen blood glucose meter. Learn more and get started today at contournext.com/juicebox. Today's podcast is sponsored by US Med. usmed.com/juicebox. You can get your diabetes supplies from the same place that we do. And I'm talking about Dexcom, Libre, Omnipod, Tandem, and so much more. usmed.com/juicebox or call 888-721-1514.
Hi, my name is Margaret Woods. I am 26 years old. I have been type 1 diabetic for 15 years, and I am a corrections officer.
Ooh, Margaret, 26, 15 years, makes you 11 when you were diagnosed. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
And a corrections officer. Ooh, wait a minute. In like a prison?
And a jail.
Oh, what's the difference?
So jail, you are waiting to be sentenced or bond out depending on your charges. And prison, you are sentenced.
Okay. Is there a difference?
Yeah, prisons. Go ahead, sorry.
Is there a difference in your job? Like, could you work at one or the other?
Prison is owned by state here in Florida, and jail is county.
You're in Florida and a corrections officer.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do we have to talk about your diabetes, or can I just ask you questions about being a corrections officer for the now?
You can do both.
Okay.
I love what I do, and I have stories for days.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Well, let's figure out first about your diabetes. So when you were diagnosed when you were 11, was it a surprise? Is it a family trait? Where does that fall?
Kind of both. So type 2 runs heavy on my dad's side. And from what my mom has told me, because I've asked her about it, she said that they found abnormal blood work from my pediatrician, that my sugar was really, really high, about 400 or 500s. And they're like, yeah, you need to take her to the ER. She's not doing so good. So that's what they did. They took me to the ER here locally, and they put they gave me some liquids, tried to bring my sugar down, and it wouldn't budge.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to send me to a specialist. So at first, they caught it really, really early. So they're like, oh, she's type 2. Oh, no, she's type 1. Here, try all these medications and shots and pills. Oh, no, she's type 2. Oh, no, she's not. She's type 1. And that was kind of the seal deal. So I got the short end of the straw over here.
That's something. They just back and forth like that.
Mm-hmm. I guess they caught it so early they couldn't tell like what my body was doing quite yet. So they're like, yeah, let's try a couple of different methods.
Well, what did they try first?
They tried, I think, shots twice a day, a type of pill twice a day, I remember my mom was trying to like get me to sit down and hold still for when she had to check my blood sugars. And I'm like, no, don't. I don't want to do this. And she's like, listen, just sit down. I'm like, I don't want to do this. She's like, you don't got a choice.
Yeah.
I was like, no.
Stop misbehaving or I'll put you outside where the anacondas and the crocodiles are. Then you'll come back in gleefully. Do you live in that part of Florida, by the way? The part where like everyone released their pets and now it's the Amazon jungle?
I guess it depends where in Florida. I'm more south of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of know where the alligators are and everything. They're more by the lakes in the more swampy areas. We just have, where I used to live, had a lot of sandhill cranes, and not a lot of people know what kind of bird that is. But they look like, to me, they look like dinosaurs.
Sandhill cranes. Really?
If you ever hear them call when they like do their bird call, it's loud. So I had a friend in middle school, her mom is not native to Florida. So when they moved down to Florida and saw these birds, and when they started their call, she didn't know what was going on. She thought it was an alarm system going off. They're loud. And it's like, no, those just are local birds. You'd be all right.
Can't the alligators catch them? So they got you just doing a couple of shots and some pills. Do you think they think you're type 2 at that point?
I believe the first time that they diagnosed me, I was type 2.
Okay.
And then that wasn't working. And then they gave me shots. And I don't know if it was maybe the type of insulin they were giving me. I'm not sure what they did give me because it was so long ago. I was in 5th grade. Mm-hmm. But nothing was working. And I guess either my body figured it out or maybe the doctors did. And they're like, oh, okay, well, this is working. So yeah, she's type 1. This is what she needs to do. And good luck. Do you
carb count or do you do sliding scale?
I do both.
Back then they started you on something though, right? They started you on sliding scale, basically like twice a day shooting. They were probably telling you a certain amount of carbs when you were 11. And then they decide you're type 1. And what happens after that?
This was so long ago.
Yeah, if you don't remember, it's fine. Just a lot of times people don't remember, but
I ate a lot of the same things every day, especially my lunches for school.
Mm-hmm.
So I did carb count. I don't remember what my carb ratio was then. I think it was 1 unit every 15 carbs, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a sandwich, turkey sandwich. What do you call them? Pringles, the sugar-free chocolate cookies, pudding or Jell-O, sugar-free. And there was something else. Peanuts, maybe?
That was your life?
Something. That was basically my lunch every day. I mean, I would pick like the different kinds of flavors I wanted as long as it's within that range of carbohydrate wise. Breakfast would differ. Sometimes I'd have a little bit of oatmeal. Sometimes it would be eggs and toast with a little bit of peanut butter because I loved peanut butter as a kid. Like that was like my life right there.
Mm-hmm. Was that like a diabetes thing? Was it like low carbs, but then some peanut butter so your blood sugar doesn't fall when you bolus? Was that the process, do you think? Or do you probably not even remember?
I just remember like loving peanut butter so much that it was just like my savior back then.
It's excellent. So when do you start taking care of yourself? Like it sounds like your mom was handling things. Is that right?
Yes, greatly. I don't want to say she was a helicopter mom because then I would say she was, but now looking back, she was doing what she could for me. And having her youngest baby having diabetes, it was not easy for her. And I know she wanted, to give me the same opportunities as any regular kid. When she started to kind of back away a little bit and gave me more freedom in controlling and handling myself, I think I needed her a bit longer than I thought because I just kind of went off the charts for a little bit. Okay. I just didn't care, I guess you could say. So I just kind of did my own thing.
Were you pushing for independence or or was she trying to give it to you, like hand it off to you?
I think it was more of she was trying to give me the independence and like, okay, so she knows what she's doing. She knows her carb ratio. She knows what to give herself. She eats the same thing nearly every day, even on the weekends. And whenever we did like physical activities, because we did do a lot of exercise around our neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And my dad and my dad's coworker and friend had I guess you call it like a little house right by a lake here, Lake Placid.
Yeah.
And we do like jet skis and a lot of swimming. It was a lot of like, water activities. And she had to really make sure I was okay because I love swimming. You couldn't get me out the water.
You freaked me out a little because I thought Lake Placid was in New York.
No, we have a Lake Placid here in Florida.
Everybody gets one? I didn't know that.
I guess.
Okay.
Is it everyone gets one in every state? I don't know.
Everyone gets one. So, but once she hands the care off to you, you don't do well with it?
I was very like on and off with it. I think it was because I didn't take care of myself a lot back then, was because I was treated differently as a child from both my teachers and my fellow students / friends. A lot of bullying going on. So I just wanted to fit in. I just wanted to be a normal kid.
Diabetes comes with a lot of things to remember. So it's nice when someone takes something off of your plate. US Med has done that for us. When it's time for Ardent supplies to be refreshed, we get an email. Rolls up and in your inbox says, "Hi Ardent, this is your friendly reorder email from US Med." You open up the email, it's a big button that says, "Click here to reorder," and you're done. Finally, somebody taking away a responsibility instead of adding one. US Med has done that for us. An email arrives, we click on a link, and the next thing you know, your products are at the front door. That simple. usmed.com/juicebox or call 888-721-1514. I never have to wonder if Arden has enough supplies. I click on one link, I open up a box, I put the stuff in the drawer, and we're done. US Med carries everything from insulin pumps and diabetes testing supplies to the latest CGMs like the Libre 3 and the Dexcom G7. They accept Medicare nationwide, over 800 private insurers, and all you have to do to get started is call 888-721-1514 or go to my link, usmed.com/juicebox. Using that number or my link helps to support the production of the Juicebox podcast. The Contour NextGen blood glucose meter is sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox podcast, and it's entirely possible that it is less expensive in cash than you're paying right now for your meter through your insurance company. That's right. If you go to my link, contournext.com/juicebox, you're going to find links to Walmart, Amazon, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Kroger, and Meijer. You could be paying more right now through your insurance for your test strips and meter than you would pay through my link for the Contour NextGen and Contour Next test strips in cash. What am I saying? My link may be cheaper out of your pocket than you're paying right now, even with your insurance. And I don't know what meter you have right now. I can't say that. But what I can say for sure is that the Contour NextGen meter is accurate. It is reliable, and it is the meter that we've been using for years. contournext.com/juicebox. And if you already have a Contour meter and you're buying test strips, doing so through the Juicebox podcast link will help to support the show. What did the bullying look like? Do you remember that?
I remember some kids saying that I was weird and I was different, that, I had something different that, wasn't within my control. Like, I'm sorry this happened to me. I don't know why you're bullying me because of it. I wanted to do sports. I wanted to do basketball and volleyball. And the coaches didn't want me on the team because I was a liability. So I didn't get that opportunity. I had to leave early before lunch to go check my sugar and give myself insulin. And when the kids picked that up, they're like, "Oh, she's just going early to eat a second lunch." It got to that level. And then they used to steal my books. They would write in my books, throw the books at me. It was pretty rough.
My God. So, geez. So bullied about your weight, about what you had,
my diabetes,
what you
my
had to do with your diabetes, your height. Were you very tall, very short?
Then I was tall for my age.
Okay.
I was the tallest in the class, but third tallest in the overall grade, especially going into middle school.
Mm-hmm. Not pleasant? You didn't like that? Or did you not mind it, but they just used it as something to focus on?
I wish then I was shorter, but I had stopped growing. So now I'm like a good average height for a female, I guess.
How
I'm
tall are you?
5'6".
5'6". That's a nice height.
5'6".
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm taller than most of my fellow deputies. So it's like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Arden's 5'7", and she looks like a giant next to most women. You know?
I guess it just depends, you know.
Yeah, it's just on who you're around. But the kids took. So when you say bullying, do you think it went on for like a semester, a year, for years? How long did you deal with that?
The 5th and 6th grade was tough, the toughest. 7th, I had the same kids for all of my classes. So with the same, especially the boys, they would target me, especially when it came to gym. And I hated gym because of that, especially when we played dodgeball. The kids they would all throw the balls at me, and I would be basically the first out. If not me, then my friend at the time, Austin, because he was a kind of a geek and I was kind of a nerd because I liked superheroes and anime and manga, and I like to trace over the manga I wanted to draw, but now I can do stick figures. So they would target us mostly. And one time a kid threw a ball and it hit me right in the jugular, and it stopped my airway for a good few seconds.
Jesus.
Yeah. And then the coach saw that and she's like, yo, what? So I had to basically sit out for the next few games before I felt okay to go back in. And then the dodgeballs were not those like soft little rubbery or plastic ones. It was like those rubber ones.
Mm. They stung if they got you.
Mm-hmm. It stung when you got hit.
And they made that noise. The thump, the clump. I don't know how to make the noise. It's like a hollow, like a hollow rubber thumping. You know, you get hit with it. Anything done about it? Like parents step in, faculty, anything like that?
Nope.
No.
I did go to the teachers. I did go to the dean. And then it was a lot of hearsay. So unless there was proof, they couldn't do anything. And of course, you know, then the group of bullies, especially in my 7th grade class, were like, oh, we didn't do anything. You know, we don't even bother her and da-da-da. And it's like, well, this is what they're doing, you know, and they're like, oh, we don't care about you or we don't mind you. You know, you help us in class, especially with math and science. And it's like, really? So, and I did tell my dad, and he told me the same thing. He's just like, well, talk to your teachers, talk to the dean, and nothing was done. So I just kind of just went to school, did the best I could, talked to the small few friends I had, and then just went about my day.
You said in your note that you were in and out of hospitals as a child.
Yes, when I was first diagnosed.
That was during the beginning of the diagnosis. Was that because we were having trouble getting some balance, or what was the cause of that?
So I remember before I had to go to the specialist, that's when they tried to get my sugar down, gave me some fluids. My sugar didn't budge. I went to the specialist, and to educate me like about diabetes, what it is, and this is when they confirmed I was type 1. They're like, well, we, come to the hospital, stay here for a week or 5 days or however long it was then. We'll teach you how to carb count, how to teach you to be more independent and give yourself shots. They were very big with JDRF, I think it's called at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So they did give me like a little teddy bear that had like the little miscolored patches on its arms and legs and stomach where you could give yourself the shots. They gave me like a little book with the Pink Panther on it, and it says, life with type 1 diabetes. And I think I still have it, actually.
You have the Pink Panther book?
I think I do, yeah.
We threw ours out a
remember
little
seeing
while ago.
it recently.
Yeah. We must have had it for over a decade, and then one day somebody was like, "What? Have we ever opened this?" And then it went in the trash. What's your remembrance? Like, if I just tell you to look back and like you grew up with diabetes, is your remembrance going to be like bad? Like people picked on me, I was sick. Like, is that your vibe when you remember it?
It's heavy. It's very heavy. But at the same time, I'm glad it did happen, because if I did not have that experience, I wouldn't be the person I am today.
Who are you today?
I think of myself as outgoing and fun, and I don't let my condition be an excuse or hold me back with what I want to do, especially physical stuff. Mm-hmm. And I actually had a coworker ask me, because I tell basically everybody, especially those that never worked with me, like, hey, just so you know, I'm type 1 diabetic. And if I need to step out for a minute to check my sugar or whatever, I need to. It's a health thing. And one of my coworkers brought that to my attention, and she's like, well, if you're so adamant about your condition and telling everybody, why did you pick this field of profession where it can be 0 to 100 real quick?
Mm.
I said, because I'm not going to let my disease dictate my life. I'm not going to revolve around my condition to make it easier for me. I like a challenge. And that's one of the reasons why I chose this profession. So she's like, okay, well, I don't say people, but they just are like, well, if she's been cleared to do this job, then she's going to do this job. Mm-hmm. Yes, I understand that. But, now that I've been on a pump, my sugars have been a lot better at preventing me from going too high or too low.
Okay.
So my sugars have been, as of lately, beautiful.
Excellent.
I very rarely have to step out and, drink a juice or eat glucose tablets and then go back on the floor and do whatever I was doing.
Was that more common when you were younger?
With low blood sugar?
Yeah.
No, I was running high a lot.
Okay. So what big adjustments have you made to your management over the last couple of years then?
I did go to a different endocrinologist. The two I had back to back prior to this current one, they were not helping me at all. I had one, he was an older gentleman, and nothing wrong with that. But he just wouldn't listen to me. He wouldn't talk to me. We would talk, and I tell him, this is what's my daily routine. And this was before I became a corrections officer.
Right.
This is my daily routine. Then I was not too active on the floor or too active physically. I think I was with the school board, I think at the time. He, would be like, okay, well, then we're going to do this and this to see if we can bring your sugars down. And then he would, give my paperwork to his nurse, and then the nurse would fill in my prescription for insulin. And at the time I was on pens. I was not yet on a pump. Mm-hmm. And then somehow along the way, he or the nurse would mess up the correction dose and gave me the wrong insulin pen. So I am still on Novolog, and they gave me Humalog, and my insurance doesn't cover Humalog. So for a single pen, I had to pay $250 out of pocket for that.
Any reason you didn't say, hey, this isn't really what I'm supposed to be getting?
I did. When they gave me the pen and I saw the different color, I said, this is not mine. They're like, that's what your doctor gave you. And I'm like, I don't take Humalog, I take Novolog. And I said, you know what? Just, is there any way that I can come back for it? Because I don't take this, and I'm not paying this much for a single pen of insulin. That's going to last me like a week.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, sure, we'll hold on to it just in case. And then I called my doctor, no answer. I left a voicemail, no answer. And then I finally got a hold of a nurse, and she's like, oh yeah, he put in some of the stuff wrong on the paperwork, and let me see if he'll come back and fix it. And I explained to her, the pen and the insulin, and she's like, well, that you might have to come back and do another follow-up. And I'm like, what? So I'm like, I have like no insulin, so I'm going to have to go and pick up this insulin and pay this money. And she's like, unfortunately, you're going to have to do what you got to do. And I was like, hey, thanks.
Do you feel like from the very beginning, your kids mean everything to you? That means you'd do anything for them, especially if they're at risk. So when it comes to type 1 diabetes, screen it like you mean it. Because even if just one person in the family has it, your child is up to 15 times more likely to get it too. Screen it like you mean it, because type 1 diabetes can develop at any age. And once you get results, you can get prepared for your child's future. So screen it like you mean it. Type 1 starts long before there are symptoms, but one blood test could help you to spot it early, before they need insulin, and could lower the risk of serious complications like diabetic ketoacidosis or DKA. Talk to your doctor about how to screen for type 1 diabetes, because the more you know, the more you can do. So don't wait. Tap now or visit screenfortype1.com to learn more. Again, that's screenfortype1.com. Screen it like you mean it. Anybody's ever pushed you towards more successful moments or had your back, or has it been a slog the whole way? Part of your note here is kind of fascinating. You said, I was told through my younger life I could never have a normal one. I couldn't do what other healthy people did. I couldn't diet and lose weight if I needed to, get a tattoo, a piercing, have healthy children. Like, were people just constantly telling you shit that just was depressing?
I'm going to say yes. It's been like that even after I graduated high school. Thankfully, I was in marching band all 4 years of high school. My band teacher, he was there for the first 3 years of high school. And then we had a different band teacher my fourth grade year, or my senior year, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
He was really cool. I honestly do miss him, and he's doing amazing in life. He's like, well, if you need anything, let us know. And I said, well, I have to have my testing kit on me. And if I can't carry it, can, somebody else carry it, or a parent volunteer? He's like, oh no, we got you. So the drama teacher would carry my stuff. And if she couldn't carry it, then she passed it off to one of the parent volunteers. And my dad at the time was an SRO. So he would be at the football games. And when we got done with our halftime show, we'd go to where the board is, where it keeps the track of the scores.
Yeah. Scoreboard, we'll call it.
Yeah.
That was
we
great.
Would hang
By the
around
way,
there.
Margaret, that was my favorite part so far. You're like, the board where they keep the scores. What the hell is that thing called?
I mean, the scoreboard.
Hold on a second. Let me think. It's, I get trying to tip my tongue. Are you nervous by any chance?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it's not going away yet?
You could probably hear a little bit of shaking in my voice. I'm just nervous and I'm excited, and I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Stop for a second. Why are you excited?
Because I'm putting my voice out there for once. I felt like a lot of times, like especially throughout my life, like nobody gave a second thought. No one cared or gave two shits about me.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I'm more vocal and open about it, and now that I've, found this podcast that I really wish I had growing up, it gave me a lot of encouragement.
Mm.
And it gave me a lot of, I guess, the support that I needed. And I've just become more comfortable with myself. Because then I was just like, if they know, they know. And if they, don't, they don't. I don't care. I'm just going to do what I do. I don't care. I don't give two shits. I guess more depressed then. Now I'm just like, hey, how are you? You just say, I'm diabetic. And if you have any questions, I'm very open about it.
Do you think you've been depressed in your life? Or do you just think you had depressive moments or sadness?
Probably both. And I just didn't realize it.
Do you think it existed prior to diabetes?
I think it became more so when I got diagnosed, and with all the bullying and they just didn't really care. And it's just like, okay, well, I'm just going to be over here in the corner. Don't mind me.
Have you ever had your thyroid checked?
Yes. From my last blood work, it was within normal limits.
Okay, good. What does that mean? What's the number? TSH, do you know?
I don't know. He just said everything looks normal. Nothing sticks out. And I was just like, okay.
Okay. Would you, not now while we're recording, but take a look for me, okay? You go find your labs. The reason I say is because they'll tell you that some doctors will tell you anywhere between 0 and 10 is an acceptable TSH. But I'm going to say that over about 2.5, if you have thyroid issues, that could possibly need medication. So if you're, for instance, a 4, they'll say, oh, that's in range. That's fine. But if you're a 4 and you're losing your hair and you're tired all the time and you're anxious or depressed, these could be thyroid symptoms, hypothyroid symptoms.
I'm seeing my doctor next month, so I might have to ask him because I don't have any of the lab work.
Yeah, well, you could get it from there. Do you have any hypothyroid symptoms that you know of? Do you know what they are?
I don't, but I don't think I do.
Fatigue, weight gain, trouble tolerating the cold, joint and muscle pain, dry skin, dry thinning hair, heavy or irregular menstrual periods, fertility problems, slow heart rate, depression. Did you hear yourself in there or no?
Well, I'm not losing hair, thank goodness.
You just heard the things you were happy wasn't happening to you. You're like, oh my God, my hair's fantastic. Never mind.
It's long and luscious.
But I'm not saying you do. I'm just saying that if you have some of that stuff, it's okay to ask.
Well, I do. I've always had trouble losing weight. I don't know if it's just because of maybe the diabetes and how my A1C was really high then.
See, the thing is, if your A1C was higher, that would indicate higher blood sugars, and you'd probably have less trouble losing weight if you weren't using enough insulin. You might have, like, when you get somebody gets DK, they lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
It's because their blood sugars are higher.
Yeah, I went through that too in 2017.
Yeah. Were you thinner at that point?
Yes. I don't know what my A1C was then. I had noticed a lot of weight loss. I was 170 and I was just kind of like, okay, this is great. I'm losing weight. Don't know how or why, but sure, let's go with it. And remember, I got really sick. I was throwing up. Nothing was keeping down. And that it was like that for over a day. And then on day 2 or 3, I couldn't even keep down water. And I didn't know what was going on with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was with a different guy at the time, my high school sweetheart. And I fell to the floor and I couldn't breathe. I felt like there was like this immense, sharp, burning sensation where my kidneys are. And it was preventing me from breathing. And I kept saying, call the ambulance, I can't breathe. So he did. And ambulance came, took me back to the ER. And they said, yeah, there's a lot of sugar in your urine. Your sugar's like, I don't remember what they said. It was really, really high. And basically went into DKA. And I was in ICU for 3 days.
Yeah. Margaret, let me have a chat here with our computer overlords for a second. And tell you that ChatGPT says high blood sugar can lead to weight loss primarily due to the body's inability to use glucose effectively for energy when insulin levels are insufficient or when the body becomes resistant to insulin. Here's a detailed explanation. Lack of insulin or insulin resistance, that's the first header, is insulin is necessary for glucose to enter the body's cells to be used as energy. When there is not enough insulin or the body is resistant to insulin, glucose stays in the bloodstream rather than being used by the cells. This can lead to energy deficits because the cells are not receiving the glucose they need. The body perceives this as a state of energy deficit, even though there's plenty of glucose in the blood. Breaking down fat and muscle to compensate for this lack of usable energy, the body starts to break down fat and muscle tissue to provide an alternative source of energy. This breakdown of fat and muscle leads to the weight loss. In addition to this, when blood sugar levels are extremely high, the kidneys try to remove excess glucose through the blood by excreting it in the urine. This process also causes loss of calories, which can contribute to further weight loss and, of course, dehydration. So I'm saying this out loud because it's dangerous, but you will hear people sometimes who have type 1 diabetes restrict their insulin as a way to lose weight. And that, of course, is actually an eating disorder. It's a sign of an eating disorder, and very dangerous. Please don't do that. But my point is that if you're having trouble losing weight, if you're using a lot of insulin or because you're eating a lot of calories, then that might be that. But it doesn't have much to do with the insulin beyond the caloric intake. Now, if you're insulin resistant, that's a different issue, etc. Do you have PCOS or any of the menstrual issues?
No, I thought I did. What was it? 2018, I went into the ER for a really bad kidney infection. And they did a CAT scan and they saw a little lump on my ovaries. So they said then it was a cyst. Until as of recently, as of this year, it grew to the size of a peach in the span of maybe 4 to 6 months. And my OB was like, yeah, you're going to need surgery. So March, I had to get it removed and lost my left tube and ovary.
Oh.
But then they took it out to make sure it wasn't cancerous because of how fast it was growing. They were worried it was cancer. So it just turned out to be just tissues. It wasn't even a cyst. And I was like, okay, well.
But they took your fallopian tube anyway?
The left one, yes. I still have my right one.
Okay. Well, you can drive on this side of the road then in America. You'll be fine.
I'll be all right.
Yeah. Can you have kids, did they say?
They said if I wanted to, yes.
Do you want to?
No.
Why not?
I just don't see myself as being a mom. Both my current boyfriend and I just decided not to have kids. We just, I guess, want to fulfill ourselves and our lives without really bringing in that extra load, as mean as it sounds.
Mm-hmm. An extra load, Margaret, is how you end up having kids, by the way. Listen, there's nothing, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with not wanting kids. I was just interested. Like, you don't have to explain it to me. Like, did you feel like I was like, why not? I didn't mean that if that's how it came across. I'm sorry.
No, a lot of people have asked, like, well, why don't you want kids? I just don't want kids. I don't see myself as being a mom. I especially don't want to put myself through that, I guess, trauma, because another thing I was told growing up was I have a hard time conceiving because I'm type 1. I'm going to have a hard time keeping it because I'm a type 1, and there's a greater chance that the child will be born with or have it later in life as type 1 or have diabetes. But I'm grateful that I actually have 3 nieces and a nephew. So those are my kids, and I try and spoil them when I can.
Margaret, did you have a fairy godmother that was on Smack or PCP? What the hell happened to you? We've glossed over this so far, but I can't anymore. How were your parents? They decent parents?
I mean, I love my parents. You know, they're a little rough around the edges.
I'm
like,
gonna ask you if you loved them. Hold on a second. Like, did they hit you?
No, they love me. I hope so.
They yell at you?
Only when I was bad.
All right. You didn't feel abused?
Of course not.
Anybody an alcoholic or drug addict in the house?
Oh gosh, no.
All right. Are they a little oopid stay? What am I saying, Margaret? You know what I'm saying?
What oopid stay?
Oopid stay. I don't want to spell it out. Are they dummies? Were they dumb, stupid?
No.
No? Okay. Well then, so then where is all this doom and gloom coming from? Oh my God, are they Catholic? Are they Catholic?
I think they're Pentecostal.
I love that you don't even know what your religion is. Okay, never mind. So Pentecostal, that sounds like snake handlers, but I don't know much about religion.
We just went to church on Sundays, and then I became older, and I was just like, I'm going to do my own thing.
You can't speak parcel tongue though, right?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I haven't attempted. Let me just go out and find anaconda. Hold up.
Can I tell you something right now? The craziest goddamn thing ever. When my son was like, I don't know, 6, 8 years old, whenever that goddamn Harry Potter movie was like in its heyday, we were at the zoo. And he walks over and had seen the movie and does this like pretend parcel tongue stuff at this big cage. And this fucking snake zips up, looks up, turns and goes right to him. And we were like, oh my God. Like it was the weirdest goddamn thing. I'll never forget it. It felt like he talked to that snake. I know he didn't. And please, if you're a weirdo, don't find my son and kill him because you think he's a witch. Nothing like that. Actually, it was just, it was coincidental.
I'm all for it.
This is not my point. My point is, Margaret, at somewhere along the line growing up, you were around people who just expected bad things to happen because everything you were told, you could have been told the opposite. Like that's the thing that I'm not understanding about your story. And because you can't have kids, you're not gonna be able to get a tattoo. You can't do this. You can't, you won't, you shouldn't. What the fuck? Has anybody ever heard of hope? How about like, we'll get your blood sugar in a good spot. So if you get a tattoo, it'll heal well. Or, there are plenty of people with type 1 diabetes who have babies. We'll figure out how they do it. Like what's with the woe is me and the doom and gloom? Like, where does that come from?
I don't know. That's what
it's all around you.
That was the energy around me, but that's not the energy in me. And that's why, even though I've been told all these negative things, I guess that is why I like a challenge. That's why I decided to push myself into exceeding expectation and became, I guess, worthy.
This is what I got to figure out, because in the first half of your story, you seem muted. Like you seem sad, but I don't think you are. Like, and I don't know if it's just you're just a slower talker and a thoughtful talker, maybe, but like, or if you're just still nervous. That's why I asked you if you were nervous earlier, because there's part of me that thinks I'm going to break you free, and you're going to be like I feel like I should have asked a prison story first to get you going. Like I seriously, I feel like I did this out of order. I'm starting to feel bad about it. Like, so let's practice this for a second. All right, seriously. All right, let's just jump ahead for a second, then we're going to jump back. What's your best jail story? Please make it about somebody hiding something in their vagina, but go ahead.
So I have a few, but this is the most recent one.
Mm-hmm.
We had a girl come in and she was very rowdy, so that can mean a lot of things when they come in rowdy. They could come in drunk, high, aggressive, like to the verge of fighting, or they could just be basically shit talking. It just all depends. So I was there in booking, picking up some females to go back to the dorm. And when they heard that they had one coming rowdy, I stayed around just to see like what was going on, if they needed another female officer to handle this situation. I was just kind of, being the fly on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
So then she came and she was just yelling. I'm guessing it was her because she was very, very loud. So I found out later, because I didn't know the whole story. She was pissed at her girlfriend because she was going to have sex with her girlfriend, but the girlfriend left to go have sex with a man. So when the girl came in that was arrested, she had on a strap on, and the arresting officer, who was a female, saw said strap on, yanked it from her, and put it on her cop car. It was a suction cup and just right on the hood of the car. She got mad at the arresting officer because she took her dildo.
And they're expensive, I would imagine.
I would assume so.
Yeah.
So she kept begging the booking sergeant. She's like, please, Sarge, give me 20 minutes. I'll fuck that bitch up. I'll fuck her up. She give her 20 minutes and I'll give her the pink ear or the black ear or whatever she said. I was like, oh my God.
So
y'all don't need me. Okay, I'm gonna go.
So this girl was upset because the arresting officer took her strap on from her, which had a suction cup, probably to embarrass her, suction cupped it to the car. And she was wearing it because her girlfriend, who she was going to have sex with, left the house to go have sex with a man instead.
Basically.
What a great story. You could tell these all day? Like,
I have another one if you want to hear it.
Do I want to hear
longer.
it? Again, I feel like we should have gone to this first because I think your personality is going to come out. Because I'm going to say, I want to hear the next story, Margaret. Hold it to you. But at this moment, I'm blaming myself because I knew you were nervous and I didn't do enough to break you out of it in the beginning. So I feel like I've done you a disservice. So we're going to keep going. Give me one more story.
So we have a lot of mental health. I went to go pick up one, and I know she's mental health, but she's not aggressive. She just talks a lot.
Yeah.
So she's an older woman. She's very short. Like I said, I'm 5'6", maybe 5'7" on a good day. And she's like to my shoulder bone. So she's very, very short.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a booking deputy. He's very, very tall. I don't know how tall exactly, but he's very tall and he's very big. Not fat, but he's just,
Mm-hmm.
He's like a mountain to me. So so I went to go pick her up. I said, all right, come on, pick up your stuff. Let's go back to the housing unit. And she's like, I see that man right there. So I looked and I was like, oh, you mean him? She's like, yeah, he arrested me and he took me in the back and he raped me. And I was like, oh my goodness. So I'm looking at the deputy and I was like, how did that go? And he's laughing because we knew she's not all there.
Mm-hmm.
Then the females were housed like towards the very back of the jail. So when we were taking that very long walk, remember that old Kmart? I was like, yeah, the one that shut down like, I don't know, 7 years ago. She's like, yeah. I said, well, what about it? She goes, there were 7 doctors and they all took me back there and they had their way with me. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry to hear that. And I know she's like not all there and just making this up. And then she's like, do you know where this road is? I said, yeah, I used to live off of that road. She goes, I had my son there and I used to live off that road. It was a natural home birth. And I said, well, congratulations. I'm glad you, had your son, whatever. She's like, yeah, and that son is the child of the sheriff. And I was like, oh, here we go. I was like, okay. And she goes, yeah, that son of a bitch won't come in and claim that child, and that motherfucker owes me $1 million and child support. I was like, okay, let's keep walking. So then we're almost there, and we have to go past a door to get to another door to another door. So we're like at that first door. And then she says, I have a boyfriend. I said, well, congratulations. I'm so glad that you have somebody special in your life to help you through your
share
time
these
of need.
moments. Yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then she's like, he has 7 houses. I said, wow, look at you dating a millionaire. Good for you, girl. And she's like, yeah, and that motherfucker won't give me 1 house. I was like, oh, here we go. And I'm trying to hold in my laughter until I get her into the cell. And then when I got her there and then into, we call it the tower where the control board is, I just start dying on the floor. And my coworkers are like, are you okay? I was like, no, I'm not okay. Need my inhaler.
I mean, I don't know how bad at that do you have to be not to be able to get one of those houses. You know what I mean?
Like, oh my God.
So are there a lot of mentally ill people that come through?
I don't know how many exactly, but we have a good portion of mental health, both male and female. but they are housed separately from our regular population. So they're not at risk. And so the other inmates are not at risk for exposure or whatever negative occurrence that could happen.
How many inane conversations do you have a day? It's like
mental health?
Yeah,
or
no, just absolutely like conversations that after you have them, you walk away going, what the hell just happened? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I always feel bad for people who work at cash registers too, because, people say the dumbest shit while they're in line for cash registers.
I have one almost every shift.
I was going to say.
Almost, and it's just like, did that just really happen?
You should just write a book. You should just every day write down the craziest one, and at the end, just publish the book of jailhouse conversations I've had.
I could probably get a few people on board and be like, hey, let's do this. And, especially the ones that have been there a lot longer than me, that are like a little older than me.
Oh, I'm sure. How is your diabetes doing? Is the job like rigorous or a lot of walking? Does it mess with your blood sugars? Actually, how do you manage now? What devices do you use?
So I was on Omnipod 5 and Freestyle 3. I could not afford a Dexcom because they wanted, if I can remember correctly, an $800 down payment, and the supplies after that were just out of my price range, and I could not afford it. So with the Omnipod, I honestly loved it. I kept it on my thighs. It was wireless, and it was a low chance of it breaking if, God forbid, I had to put my hands on somebody. Now I'm on the recent Medtronic pump.
770G? 780G?
Yes. 780.
780G. So you're using their algorithm?
Yes, and just because the sensor that I had, the Freestyle 3,
your insurance is covering it.
It wouldn't pair up with the Omnipod 5.
No, of course. Yeah. So you're using the Medtronic sensor?
Yes.
Now, okay. How are you enjoying that? I hear good things from a lot of people about that. Is it a good system?
So this one, yes, because I was on Medtronic in the past, a little after I was in ICU for 3 days.
Yeah.
I didn't really care for it. It did the wire did snag on a lot of doors, because then I used to be a lunch lady. So and it would just catch on the doors, it'd catch on tables, no matter how much I would tuck it in my pocket, it just would wiggle itself out.
Yeah.
So now I have the sensor. I've rarely have issues.
Good.
I do have pressure lows sometimes, but I know how to prop my arm up to prevent it. And if I ever have a malfunction of a sensor, I could call and be like, hey, this is what happened. This is the reference number. And they're like, okay, well, we'll ship it out and you'll get it within X amount of weeks. Okay, cool, great.
So I don't think you can, at this point, a compression low with any CGM that you wear on your skin, it's just going to be what it is. They're very simply described as when you press down where that sensor is, it disperses the interstitial fluid underneath, and it kind of pushes the glucose away. So it's still actually accurately reading the interstitial fluid that it's in, but you're pushing so much fluid away that it looks like there's less glucose there, because there is less glucose in that spot. And then, of course, you stop pressing and it kind of redistributes. So the algorithm doesn't get you too low, doesn't let you be too high. You like how aggressive it is around meals and etc.
And sometimes if I eat maybe 15 to 20 carbs worth of a food item, it'll correct itself. If it sees I'm running high, it'll correct itself.
Handy as hell.
It is. So I'm very thankful for it, especially at work, because sometimes we're so busy that I just eat without really thinking about what I'm eating, and without really thinking about the correction. It'll just take care of itself. I do try and be like, okay, so this is, 20 grams of carbs or 15 grams. I'm just giving myself a little bit or none at all, just because of the physical activity at work.
Yeah.
But if I'm on my days off, like today, if I'm sitting here and doing nothing, then I'm going to give myself the insulin because I'm not active.
It's nice. You know what, though? I don't understand. Listen, if you got a job where you got to talk to a crazy lady about her oral sex skills, I don't know why your insurance doesn't cover whatever you want. You should have better. If I was in charge of the world, you would have better insurance because I feel like you deserve it. You know what I mean? I haven't had to have a conversation. Well, I guess I just sort of had that conversation, but I don't have to have that kind of conversation at work. If I did, I would want my choice of CGMs no matter what they were. Although I think the system you have now is great. But still, do you understand what I'm saying? I feel like you deserve choice, damn it. It's a lot. Do you ever feel unsafe at work?
Sometimes. I guess it just depends on the situation and who I work with.
Mm-hmm.
Because we do have deputies that have been there for a very long time, and they're just like, it is what it is. It is, she should be all right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, hello. Here's another good story. So we used to have COVID protocol when I was hired. So I was hired in 2020, but as a civilian. And then I went through the academy, got certified. And then when this dorm was the male intake COVID, so they would fill up the whole dorm. They would quarantine for, 10 to 14 days.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'd house to where they're supposed to go based on their classification. So then and I used to work with two amazing deputies that I miss every day. So, they watch out for me. We look out for each other. They liked me because I watch them and I open doors like as they get to there, because you can't open doors too late and you don't want to open too early.
Mm-hmm.
So they liked how I operate the board and the books. And that's why they wanted me there. But I get along with them great and I miss them. Anyway, so they were both out for Christmas Day. And I was with two other people who I'd never worked with before. And we had a guy come in the night prior, and he came in really drunk. So he was kind of being an issue throughout the night for the night shift people. And when we came in, they're like, yeah, just look out for him. He might, be an issue. And I was like, okay, great. So then I worked with a deputy who was very nonchalant, just was like, shrugged the shoulder and kept walking. It's just like, I understand that, but like, I'm a woman in a male pod. Anything bad could happen.
Yeah.
So the guy became a problem throughout the day about his PIN number, because you have a PIN number when you come in to make a phone call. So you can call your family to get you out, call the bondsman or whoever you need to basically get out of jail. So he just became an issue all day. The sergeant had to get involved. And then when the sergeant came, he's like, oh, yes, sir, I appreciate you. And da-da-da. And it's just like a complete 180 in attitude. I was like, oh, wow. Keep a mental note of that. So it was towards the end of the day, and I was escorting the nurse to do her rounds for whatever medication. And the guy was like, my PIN number is still not working. So I told him that they just reset it. He's got to go in there and change it to what he will know the PIN number will be so he can make his phone call.
Mm-hmm.
So the last guy comes out for medical, gets his meds, goes back in, and he's at the door again. So he is like, it's still not working. I said, then I don't know how to help you. I've tried to help you. And then he had the audacity of saying, well, you haven't helped me. So I cussed at him like really bad. And I try not to cuss at inmates because I try to be respectful. Because a lot of times if you're respectful to them, they will be respectful back. But for him, totally different story. So I said, I haven't helped you. I had spent all motherfucking day trying to help your dumbass get out of jail, out of my fucking pod, so you can get the fuck home. Because do you think I want you here? No, the fuck I don't. I'm tired of helping you. Figure it the fuck out. And I slammed the door. And I watched him when I got back in the control room, in the control tower, and he's just like looking at the other people, at the other inmates, and they were all laughing at him. So he sat down for a few minutes and then went upstairs and fell asleep.
It has occurred to me, Margaret, you have the worst customer service job in the world. That's really what is going on here. You get on the phone with somebody and they have to help you. It's their job, right? Like you have to help them, and you can't, and there's laws to follow, et cetera, and everything. Like this is like a CSR job from hell that you have. It really is. But you like the job though, right?
I honestly do. I can't figure out why. I don't know if it's because maybe I'm a people person, and I don't know. I like what I do.
You like it? Yeah. Well, that's cool. Listen, they say if you like what you do, you never work a day in your life.
I mean, you're not wrong.
That's what I'm hearing. Listen, I have one last question for you, and then I'll make sure that we've talked about everything that you wanted to talk about. But you sent me a couple of pictures, and in one of those photos, you were playing an instrument that I don't know what it is. I mean, it's 5 feet tall.
I might have to pull up my email too, because I sent a few.
Well, listen, it's a 5 foot tall wind instrument. There can't be more than what? What in God's name is that?
Excuse me. Am I in my marching uniform?
No, you're in a black dress.
A black dress. Okay, so that one is it's called a contrabass clarinet. Like I said, I'm 5'6", and that thing is at least another 4 inches, at least 3 to 4 inches. So it is, it's quite big. For that, that's another funny story. Trying to find the email too of the pictures I sent. Oh, here it is.
I've never seen what would I need that? What kind of music would I be playing if I was playing that thing?
So for concert, I did bass clarinet, which a lot of people don't want bass clarinets, but my, at the time, band teacher for the first 3 years of my high school was okay with it, just because we helped the tubas to kind of make them sound better, to make them seem louder. Because the bass clarinet itself is not a very loud instrument, but it helped support the sound of the tubas, because our tuba players were not very loud.
Okay.
So the contrabass, you cannot march with that. That's a concert instrument.
Okay.
So if you look in the background, there's a chair that's off color. It's tan with blue legs.
I see it.
So that's a high chair, because the other black chairs that we had, I wouldn't be able to reach the mouthpiece.
Oh, I was going to say, do you play it standing or sitting? That was my next question. Okay.
Because I had to have a high chair.
And then it goes way out in front of you like a kickstand, right?
Just how I just have it in front of me and just
straight up and down like that?
Just like that.
No kidding. It's bonkers. It looks like I asked ChatGPT to make a clarinet for you, and it got crazy and made it too big. That's exactly what it looks like. When did you start playing instruments? In high school?
I was actually 5 when I started playing music.
Okay.
I started off with piano. I got a little bit into guitar, but I couldn't really do strings. Middle school, I did French horn, and then I wanted to play the clarinet. But my middle school band teacher was like, well, I don't have any more clarinets. I have a bass clarinet. I was like, ooh, what's that? And he's like, here you go, figure it out. I was like, ooh, I love it, thanks.
I wanted a saxophone, and they didn't have one, and I gave up pretty quickly.
And I wanted to do that one next, but and I wanted to do jazz, but I didn't have that free elective to pick from.
Yeah.
So I picked culinary. So another funny story with the chair incident I was talking about. So my senior year high school band teacher, she was a character. So she knew I was diabetic. She didn't care. She thought I didn't need any special privileges. I guess that stereotypical type of person that had the stereotypical thoughts about diabetics and everything. So I've had on and off issues with her about that. But, I was just kind of let me just graduate at this point, because I'm done. She had this rule where if you were not in your seat by the second bell to warm up your instrument, you'd get lunch detention. So, I didn't think nothing really of it, but that chair was the only chair that we had in the whole theater part of the school. So the chair could be in the band room. It could have been in the closet where we keep our marching uniforms. It could have been on the theater. It could have been in the hallway. It could have been in the drama room or the choir room. It was hide and seek with that chair.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, but since the instrument is taller than me, I had to get out of the closet and put it together, which only connected in 2 ways, one in the middle and then the mouthpiece itself. So then, by the second bell, I didn't really think nothing of it, got my chair and warming up. So how we are sat, I sat dead shot middle of her. So she had full eye contact with me, and she's like, you want to explain to me why you're not in your chair after the second bell? So I said, I was looking for this chair because this is the only chair that we have where I can reach my mouthpiece. Mm-hmm. So as I'm talking, she writes a detention slip And she gives it to me. I said, I'm not taking that. She's like, why? I said, because I'm diabetic and I have to leave class early to go and give myself insulin for lunch. So you are giving me 15 minutes of not eating as is and adding another 5 to 10 minutes that I have to leave before lunch to give myself insulin. That's a total of 20 to 30 minutes of me not eating after insulin. I'm not doing that. And I could, I told her I can have a blood sugar and to pass out.
Yeah.
She's like, take it. I said, okay, watch this. So I took it. I went home. I said, hey, Dad, guess who got lunch attention? He's like, huh? So after I explained to them the whole spiel of what I just told you, and he's like, well, why don't you just serve the lunch attention? And I, told him about the whole timing thing. He's like, okay, gotcha. So again, my dad was SRO. He called up the school dean, told him what happened. And he said, when you get off the bus tomorrow or when you get there, go see the dean real quick. So I was like, okay. So I got there, went to the dean, and he's, he took my name off the list. So I didn't have to serve lunch attention. And he's like, are you serious? Like, she's giving you lunch attention, even though she knows you're diabetic. And I was like, yeah. So I think she found out because she was very, very upset with me the next few classes. So,
it occurred to me earlier, I should have said to people that SRO means school resource officer, but it didn't occur to me that it was going to come up twice. But I have some advice, but it's not great advice. I think you should move out of Florida.
I've thought about it.
That's my advice. I mean, I'm sure it's not Florida. It's just where you live specifically. But this could be in any state, any place. But you've just encountered so many people. Their perspective seems to be one-sided. And
very much.
And the way they impact you seems to be one-sided. And I think it's left a mark on you. I really do. I don't know you all that well, obviously. But you seem like an upbeat person who spent a lot of time being told downbeat things, if that makes sense. And
and at one point, I guess in the midst of things, I guess you could say I was depressed. I believed, I was not going to be normal. I was not going to be okay. I was going to have to live with this and was not okay with it because I wanted to do my own things.
Yeah.
I just don't know what the light switch was. I don't know if it was because I found the podcast and looked at other support groups and it became hopeful. And then I was like, well, these people are living their lives regularly and doing, first responder jobs or construction or truck driving or whatever. And I'm like, well, I can do that because I'm already doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So what's stopping me from living up to my full potential? And then the last, I'd say, year and a half, I've made a drastic change. And even though I'm still having trouble losing weight, but I'm exceeding that expectation that was placed on me.
Right.
So I do have piercings. I do have tattoos. I don't want children, but I'm not against it.
Think you could get one out if you needed to, right? And it would be okay? Do you believe that still, that it would be hard to have a baby?
I still do, just because I don't think my body will be able to handle it. But then again, you never know.
What's wrong with your body? You couldn't handle it?
Is
there other stuff going on?
No, I think it's just my diabetes that I guess is that's still that fear factor. Because again, I don't want to bring an innocent soul into this world that basically is cursed with what I have. Because people think, oh, she just guys do this, this, and this, and she'd be all right. It's a lot more to that. So a lot of times, especially at jail, if there was an inmate that has diabetes and they don't understand the difference between good and good, normal, or bad numbers, they turn to me and be like, I basically have to explain it. Oh yeah, no, this is what's going on.
Yeah, well, you're going to find a lot of people don't understand their diabetes.
They don't.
Yeah, that's for sure. And you do now. Did you always, or did the finding the podcast actually up your game?
I think it did. Because I've spoken about it a lot to a handful of people, especially I think my boyfriend. And I was like, oh, listen, this podcast is about. I forgot the last one I listened to. I think there was one about a firefighter.
Mm-hmm.
He was a firefighter, and he does this, and this, and even though he's more physically active, it just brought that security, I guess.
So if a firefighter could do it, you could do it, that kind of thing?
Yes.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
If he can do it, why can't I?
I think that's true. Also, I think you could easily have a baby if you want. I mean, what's your A1C?
So the last one was 7.6.
Okay.
Now that I'm on a new system since January and still kind of fidgeting with my diet a little bit, my doctor expects that my A1C will be in the low 6.
Okay.
Which I am seeing him in another month and a half. So every time I go see him, I'm like, hey, how's my A1C? Am I doing better? Because going from that previous doctor I was talking about to another doctor, she saw me twice and no longer wanted to see me. Didn't explain why. She just said, nah, go somewhere else. And I was just like, okay, but why? And that was it. She wouldn't explain herself to me.
Did you feel like you were having a personal disagreement with her?
So I guess she's the type to be like, well, if you're not going to prove yourself that you want to get better within 2 sessions, she's done with you. She seems that type of person. It's an overtime thing. It's not like you're going to just get better by tomorrow.
But you had like an A1C in the 7s?
That's where it's currently at.
Yeah. Oh, where was it when you met her?
It was in the higher 11s. She wouldn't first sure tell me until I had to go see my new endo because I had to get cleared to go to the corrections academy because there's a clinic here for county employees, and the doctor, I put air quotes doctor because I think he's a quack, but then again, I'm not a medical professional. He's told me that I need to go see an endo because if not, then he was not going to clear me to go to the corrections academy just because I was type 1 diabetic.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay. So then I went to see my current doctor. I did blood work, and he's like, your A1C then was 11.7. And I was like, ooh, that doesn't sound good.
How does that happen? Like what decisions are not being made that lead to an 11 A1C? How long had that been going on? Did you know that what you were doing was leading to it, or did you not care? Did you know and not care, or did you not know?
I believe I just needed more guidance. I guess they'll have that mind thought of I can basically do what I want and be okay. I did do a lot of research. I found the podcast. I'm on a Reddit type 1 diabetics, and I did speak to a nutritionist a little over a year ago and just kind of set that. I made my own my own pavement.
Yeah.
Not pavement, sorry.
No,
I made my own path.
No, I hear what you're saying. I feel like you found the podcast that gave you some ideas that you could kind of reframe around. And now you're moving, obviously going from an 11 to a 7 is amazing. There's no reason to think you can't go to a 6 or lower. You know what I mean? You know what you're doing. I would check on your thyroid. If your thyroid's an issue, then handle that. If it's not, you can look into other stuff. GLPs aren't being prescribed through insurance for type 1s yet, but like there are other ideas, there are things you could maybe do to help yourself lose weight. And I'm not asking you, but if your BMI is over 27, you could qualify for a GLP for weight loss, and then that would very likely impact your insulin needs. So you'd make you more insulin sensitive. You'd use less insulin, probably lose weight, would change your diet. There's a lot of pathways here for you. I feel like you're just in the beginning. It's exciting actually, like 11 years, but it feels like you're starting, and you're having a lot of success initially, which is fantastic.
I've noticed that now my A1C is within, I guess, normal range, or even though 7's a bit, I guess, high. I've noticed that I'm a lot more happier. I'm a lot more active, and working night shift is
easier, right?
Well, to me, it's easier. I did find a really good schedule that I put myself on. As of late, I haven't been on just because of the surgery, and I want to make sure I had, the chance to recover. Like at work, there's a gym provided for us. On my days off, I, pack my snacks and label everything, meal prepping, or I get up a few hours before work and I cook something and just take it to work. They do have meals for us Monday to Friday, but it's not the best, but you can't complain about free food. So if I,
Episode 876 it's a best of, but it's Altered Minds. It explains how high and low blood sugars make you feel differently, and high blood sugars will definitely create a lot of the problems that you just said seem to have been going away for you. So that's first. Secondly, I mean, you're in a significantly different place right now than you were previously. Like, and it's happening kind of quickly, right? Is this all over like the last year?
as far as the job or as far as
The
my
A1C
sugars?
coming down, the blood sugars.
About a year and a half.
Okay. That's really, first of all, congratulations. Like, to go from the 11s to the 7s in a year and a half is really, it's wonderful. And it sounds like you did it by yourself. So that's hard work and well done, and congratulations. There's no reason to think that it can't keep going down either. Again, I just think you're right at the beginning of all this. You might not even realize it because it just feels like you've been doing it for so long. But you've got the information now. You seem to understand what you're doing with it. I don't see why I don't think you've run out of ceiling. I think there's more room to go if you want to go more.
Right. And
Yeah.
like I said, I'm always pushing the boundaries, and going from a juvenile to an adult diabetic, there was some things that were new to me or I didn't like realize or know about, like the wait 15 minutes and then eat rule after you've given yourself insulin or whatever it was. I didn't know that. I didn't understand nutrition all the best. I mean, it was provided when I was a child, and that's why I went to a nutritionist and spoke to her to better understand, because nutrition's always changing. I drink a lot of coffee. So another thing that I didn't really understand or know about was the added sugar in coffee creamer, even though it's labeled sugar free. So I've noticed, like, I buy this coffee creamer, and then I would have high blood sugar for like a few hours during the daytime, and I'm like, why is my sugar high? I'm not eating breakfast, or I'm eating or having a protein shake that's got very little carbs, and I just didn't understand.
I don't know if it's the creamer, but I can tell you that coffee makes some people have to bolus for coffee. Some people don't, but some people do.
And I didn't know that, but when I realized it was the added sugar in the coffee creamer, I switched to a different coffee creamer,
and that helped.
It never had a problem since.
Look at you. See?
I was just like, it's the little things that, people don't tell you about.
Also, listen, it's hard for me a little bit because in the photo that's in front of me, you're like, it looks like you're at a wedding maybe. And you're like, your makeup's done and you're dressed up. Like, you look like, you look older, but you're not that old. You're only 26.
The one on the Zoom cam?
Yeah. Like, in that one, like, if you told me like, oh, that lady, she's in her 30s, I'd go, I believe that. Like, but you're not. Like, you're really just getting started. Like, you're not an age where you're like, you should know everything already. It might feel that way, but I feel like in many ways you're just getting going with your life. I mean, you're 2 years older than my son, who the other day said to me, I don't know what I'm doing. And I was like, no, I know.
I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. You're very much in the beginning of all this. Like, I'm not telling you to have a baby. I don't think people who don't want to have kids should have kids. But I wouldn't be surprised either if 5 years from now you felt differently. After your blood sugar not being high all the time for a while, you've proven to yourself that you know how to take care of yourself, like that kind of stuff. You don't know how, like, your vision of the world will change. You know what I mean? Like, right now, you're coming from a very specific perspective, and an 11 A1C is definitely got you altered. You probably had brain fog you didn't know about. Like, there was a lot of stuff going on. You're probably snappier, right? Like short tempered, like that kind of stuff. There's a lot.
I was more depressed.
Okay.
My dad is the snappy one, and he's type 2. When he gets high, he gets a little snappy, and we're like, check your blood sugar, and he's just like, Urgh.
I think the way you feel about your life could change a number of times over the next couple of years. I think you should just keep doing what you're doing and keep believing in yourself and learning and adding to your knowledge base and caring for yourself, because I think you're really on your way to something wonderful.
And I've noticed that in the past year and a half that I've been like wanting to get better. Like, I was tired of being tired and depressed and not loving myself and constantly seeing high numbers. And that change. And then now where I'm at, I am happier, and, I've loved every bit of my journey, and I'm still going. We don't know what tomorrow will bring.
Yeah.
And that's, even after all the negativity I've been put through in my life and the bullying and, people are like, oh, she's probably going to die young and she's not going to take care of herself. If they could see me now, it'll just be a slap in the face because I'm loving life, I'm thriving, and I'm happy.
Yeah. Fuck them. You get
them.
You get to decide. Forget that. Don't listen to those people. Do what you think is right. And don't let them tell you what you are or what you can accomplish. Please.
Proving everybody wrong.
Goddamn right you are.
Thank you for being here. Bye.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let us end on that. Hold on one second. Did you know if just one person in your family has type 1 diabetes, you're up to 15 times more likely to get it too? So screen it like you mean it. One blood test can spot type 1 diabetes early. Tap now, talk to a doctor, or visit screenedfortype1.com for more info. A huge thanks to the Contour NextGen blood glucose meter for sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Learn more and get started today at contournext.com/juicebox. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast was sponsored by US Med. usmed.com/juicebox or call 888-721-1514. Get started today with US Med. Links in the show notes, links at juiceboxpodcast.com. If you or a loved one was just diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and you're looking for some fresh perspective, the Bold Beginnings series from the Juicebox Podcast is a terrific place to start. That series is with myself and Jenny Smith. Jenny is a CDCES, a registered dietitian, and a type 1 for over 35 years. And in the Bold Beginnings series, Jenny and I are going to answer the questions that most people have after a type 1 diabetes diagnosis. The series begins at episode 698 in your podcast player, or you can go to juiceboxpodcast.com and click on Bold Beginnings in the menu. Okay, well, here we are at the end of the episode. You're still with me? Thank you. I really do appreciate that. What else could you do for me? Why don't you tell a friend about the show or leave a 5-star review? Maybe you could make sure you're following or subscribed in your podcast app. Go to YouTube and follow me, or Instagram, TikTok. Oh gosh, here's one. Make sure you're following the podcast in the private Facebook group as well as the public Facebook page. You don't want to miss, please. Do you not know about the private group? You have to join the private group. As of this recording, it has 51,000 members in it. They're active, talking about diabetes. Whatever you need to know, there's a conversation happening in there right now. And I'm there all the time. Tag me. I'll say hi. If you're looking for community around type 1 diabetes, check out the Juicebox Podcast private Facebook group. Juicebox Podcast, type 1 diabetes. But everybody is welcome. Type 1, type 2, gestational, loved ones, it doesn't matter to me. If you're impacted by diabetes and you're looking for support, comfort, or community, check out Juicebox Podcast, type 1 diabetes on Facebook. The episode you just heard was professionally edited by Wrong Way Recording. WrongWayRecording.com.